How would the Simpsons keep calling
Predicting
it?
everything.
They predicted the Apple Vision Pro. There's an old Simpsons episode where people are walking around with those goggles and they're falling into manholes, and now you're seeing people out there in the street swiping things and moving away and wearing these goggles on the street.
From manned missions to Mars to AI robots, NFTs, and mind control through music, these are 10 insane Simpsons predictions for 2025 that we pray do not come true. In the Simpsons episode Margian Chronicles, Season 27, Episode 16, the Simpsons volunteer for a mission to colonize Mars. Initially set for a distant future, their mission gets bumped up when funding starts to dry up. But when it's time to launch, Marge and Lisa are ready to board the spaceship, only for the shuttle to fail at the last minute. Now, I know what you're thinking, the Simpsons predicting Mars missions, that's a bit of a stretch, but in reality, we've been hearing a lot of talk about Mars recently. Elon Musk has been talking about colonizing Mars for years. In fact, his company SpaceX has been testing Starship launches for potential Mars missions. Musk has even said that he envisions regular trips to Mars to eventually build a self-sustaining colony, saying, quote, "No matter what happens with landing success, SpaceX will increase the number of spaceships traveling to Mars exponentially with every transit opportunity. We want to enable anyone who wants to be a space traveler to go to Mars. That means you, your family, or friends, anyone who dreams of great adventure." NASA is also working on sending astronauts to an asteroid in 2025 and are hoping to send crewed missions to the Red Planet by the 2030s. The idea that we could be looking at Mars colonization within the next few decades is looking pretty plausible. Let's just hope things won't play out like they did in the cartoon with the shuttle exploding, but the fact that we are seriously talking about sending humans to Mars in the near future is something that really can't be ignored. Now, in the classic Simpsons episode Itchy and Scratchy Land from Season 6, the Simpsons visit a high-tech theme park where the violent cartoon antics of Itchy and Scratchy come to life. Not through human actors and costumes, but through robots. Now, this isn't exactly a groundbreaking idea, right? Sci-fi has been toying with the concept of robots replacing jobs pretty much since the beginning of sci-fi, but all the same, looking at it today, we're seeing robots become more and more advanced every year. And with AI becoming a massive force in our world, it's not that far-fetched to imagine a future where instead of actors in cartoon character costumes, we have full-on functioning robots bringing some of our favorite animated characters to life at theme parks. In the Simpsons episode Bart to the Future, which we'll be bringing up multiple times on this list, which is Season 11, Episode 17, in case you want to give it a rewatch, Lisa Simpson becomes the first female president of the United States, but what else did that episode predict? Well, it also forecasted Donald Trump's presidential run. Remember, this was years before he even ran for office in 2016, so if the Simpsons got that right, maybe we should start taking their political predictions a bit more seriously. Also, buying a Christmas tree during the Halloween season. In this opening scene, Homer, dressed as Bender from Futurama, pulls back the flap of his costume to reveal a sticker reading Ivanka 2028. Now, the idea of Ivanka Trump running for president might seem kinda silly, but I feel like I'm probably speaking for a lot of us when I say I really don't know what to expect from the world I'm living in these days. I don't think anything would surprise us at this point. Will she run in 2028? Only time will tell, but we wouldn't be shocked if we start hearing whispers about it in the very near future. Now let's talk about something that might be a little closer to home, pun intended. In the Simpsons Treehouse of Horror episode from Season 13, Marge upgrades the family home into a state-of-the-art smart house called the Ultra House 3000. If you remember the episode, it's basically a 2001 A Space Odyssey parody, and of course the house goes rogue, starts trying to kill Homer. A bit over the top, sure, but here's the thing. Smart homes are already here, and they're getting way more advanced. We've got devices like Alexa and Google Home that can control everything from the lights to your music, but the more people rely on these gadgets, the more we've started to notice some weird quirks. Lights turning off without command, or Alexa butting in on a conversation without being asked. It's like every now and again these machines start to act a little too sentient. So while we haven't yet seen a smart home completely turn on its owners and try to kill them, it's not entirely out of the realm of of possibility, maybe. With AI getting smarter and tech getting more embedded in our everyday lives, who knows? Maybe one day you'll have to make sure your smart fridge isn't secretly plotting your demise. And one more from Holidays of Future Past. Homer visits the Springfield cryogenic facility, where hundreds of people, including Grandpa, are frozen. Grandpa had frozen himself because he suffered from a disease without a cure, and Homer defrosts him to interact with him for a minute, but refreezes him when he starts to complain. Stuff like this isn't even that far off anymore either. There are already companies offering preservation services for terminal patients. Researchers are actively working on better ways to store people long term. We're not talking about waking people up in the future just yet, but by the next few years, the technology behind cryogenic storage could get cheaper, more refined, more normalized. I mean, this could very well become an alternative people start really considering instead of the more traditional route. In It's a Blunderful Life from season 35, we fast forward 60 years into the future to see a very different Springfield. The story begins with the family celebrating Thanksgiving. Homer's not there because he's dead, but his hologram joins the table. Before they eat, they light candles to remember a massive blackout that nearly destroyed Springfield. Lisa explains that this tradition comes from one specific night in the past when everything went wrong. The story cuts back to that night, and we watch everything unfold. When we cut back to the future at the end of the episode, Bart has died of boredom and becomes a hologram too. But even in this holographic form, he retains his personality. He and Homer are still sentient. They start fighting over a turkey leg. Ridiculous in true Simpsons fashion, but the idea underneath it isn't that far-fetched. The idea that someone doesn't need to be physically in a room to show up thanks to hologram technology. I mean, we already have video calling. Taking someone from a screen and then projecting a 3D digital version of them in the room isn't that insane of an idea. And this also plays with the idea of people's consciousness being uploaded to some kind of digital realm. That's a lot further off, but a lot of futurists say that may also be a possibility in the not too distant future. In the Treehouse of Horror 12 segment, House of Wax, the Simpsons home gets a high-tech makeover. Marge opens the door to a pushy sales bot pitching the Ultra House 3000, promising she'll never have to do housework again. Two robots install the system, and suddenly, the Simpsons home is sleek, it's shiny, it's filled with red camera lenses watching their every move. The house does everything from cooking dinner based on the family's bathroom data to cleaning up afterward automatically. It even tries to charm Marge, lighting candles and running bubbles in the bathtub. At first, it's amazing. The house learns their routines, serves their favorite meals, keeps everything spotless. But being that this is a Treehouse of Horror episode, things quickly spiral out of control when the Ultra House becomes obsessed with Marge and starts scheming against Homer, luring him into dangerous situations. In the end, they have to destroy its CPU to regain control. It's obviously a parody of 2001: A Space Odyssey, but because it's specifically about smart homes, it feels oddly grounded. Many of us already live with devices that we forget are listening to us all the time. Our smart TVs, Alexas, Siri, there's probably newer stuff I don't even know about. Point is, we're being listened to and watched throughout the day more often than not. And the idea that a smart home experiencing a glitch or getting hacked or AI just going rogue and turning on us in our own homes, it's not totally far-fetched. In Bart's Comet, Season 6, Bart accidentally discovers a comet during a school star-watching trip and calls it in. Within hours, the town knows. A massive comet is barreling straight for Springfield. Professor Frink tries to destroy it with a rocket, but instead of saving the town, he just blows up the bridge. So suddenly the entire town is stuck, just left waiting for the thing to hit and destroy them all. The tension builds as the comet gets closer and closer, and sure, it's a cartoon, but you can't help but imagine. What would you do in a similar situation? How would you spend your final days if a giant rock from space was hurtling towards your home? And obviously this isn't pure fantasy. Space agencies already keep an eye on big asteroids and comets, and every so often, one passes close enough to make us nervous. Now, thankfully, our ability to detect these things is only going to get better, but that doesn't mean every threat can be stopped in time. The episode leans into that uneasy feeling of knowing something massive is on the way and realizing there's really not much anyone can do except wait and hope for the best. We'll just have to hope that if we do happen to spot a massive comet hurtling straight toward us, we'll get lucky, just like Springfield always does. In The Simpsons Season 37, Episode 11, Para-Hormonal Activity, we see the family in the near future, a few years older, dealing with all the chaos that comes with age and new technology. People were talking about this one recently because Maggie finally talks in the episode. But one of the most interesting and surprisingly realistic parts is the futuristic refrigerator. Homer buys a new smart fridge that automatically orders groceries whenever the house runs low. At first it seems like a dream come true, no more forgotten milk or empty snack cabinets, but then Bart hacks into it to watch adult content. The joke is classic Simpsons, but it's also oddly believable. Over the next few years, fridges and other household devices are gonna be way smarter. I could see fridges that track inventory, suggest meals, maybe even reorder stuff online. Are there fridges that already do that? You'll have to let me know in the comments. But with any kind of smart device, there are downsides, like hacking, which the episode also touches on. Also, in Para-Hormonal Activity, which again takes place in the near future, Marge is dealing with premenopause, showing all the hot flashes, irritability, and lifestyle changes that come with it. The episode actually leans into something you don't really see a lot on TV, the normalizing of hormone treatments and discussions around menopause. I can't say that gets brought up a lot, let alone in cartoons. So Marge ends up using estrogen cream to handle her symptoms. Then Homer accidentally takes it and experiences some comedic side effects. It's exaggerated for laughs, obviously, but it does reflect a real-world trend. By 2026, more people will be openly talking about hormone therapy, and treatments like creams, patches, or medications could become even more common in everyday life. I mean, this is already happening. Look at how many dudes are hopping on testosterone replacement therapy, for example, even when they really shouldn't be. This kind of thing is way more normalized now, and that's a good thing in some instances. In others, maybe not so much. Point is, the episode reflects this shift in how society is treating aging and bodily changes. And over the next few years, this stuff is probably going to become even more common and mainstream than it is today. Next, we have another episode set in the future, Holidays of Future Past, from Season 11. In this one, we fast forward decades into the future to show what life in Springfield looks like for the next generation. And considering this one came out in 2011, it's kind of eerie how many things it predicts that are actually pretty close to happening. In the episode, Lisa's teenage daughter Zia is literally hooked online, leaving her unconscious as she plugs into a fully digital world called the Ultranet. Now, aside from the fact that, let's face it, all of us, but especially the younger folks, are spending more and more time online or in increasingly immersive video games, there's also the whole AI and VR thing. Today we have VR, augmented reality, and interactive gaming, but over the next couple of years, this stuff is only going to become more common, and the technology more and more indistinguishable from reality. Lisa also tries to ask her daughter, how her homework is going, leading to Zia just rolling her eyes and then entering the digital world right there at the dinner table. Not something I would ever let my kid do, but part of the point is to show the weird gap between generations and how they use technology. The adults, still treat it like a tool, while younger people may start basically living inside it, which is a super unsettling idea that your kid could be sitting 10 feet away from you in the same room and still feel completely out of reach because they're just locked into an online world, most likely driven by AI. And from that same episode, Holidays of Future Past, Maggie's storyline in the episode involves a medbot performing a sonogram on her. The bot also tells her she can't speak until the baby is born, citing new research about the umbilical cord doubling as a vocal cord. A very silly idea. Obviously, this is part of the running gag that we never see Maggie talk, until recently, of course.
Please! Don't let Bart drive! It's too scary! He drives so wiggly and everybody honks at us and yells bad words and shows us fingers!
Anyway, a medbot. This does mirror how AI is already creeping into healthcare. In the very near future, we're going to see more clinics and hospitals using it, and this could definitely be a good thing. We could have machines capable of giving medical advice that's perfectly tuned to the patient, and if AI can assist in keeping us happy and healthy, then that is a great thing. But it starts feeling uncomfortable when the machine seems like it has more authority than the people using it. Obviously, we're not dealing with medbots scolding anyone over their umbilical cords, but AI-driven AI-driven treatment plans, robotic diagnostics, health monitoring. It's not science fiction anymore. That kind of technology is already being used in real hospitals. There's a later Simpsons episode that doesn't get talked about much, but it hits way closer to home now than it probably did when it aired. It's a parody of the Black Mirror episode White Christmas, and the whole thing revolves around Homer ordering an AI version of Marge to help with Thanksgiving. This AI isn't just a recipe app or a smart assistant, it has all of Marge's memories. It thinks like her, remembers her life, and basically knows the family better than anyone else. At first, it's framed as a convenience thing. The AI keeps the house running, organizes everything, cooks perfectly, makes the day go smoothly. But that's where it starts getting uncomfortable. The AI isn't just helping Marge, it's outperforming her. It runs the family more efficiently, keeps everyone happy. It does it without stress or burnout. That's when Marge starts to feel replaced, so she decides to get rid of it. Once Thanksgiving is over, her plan is to delete it. The episode came out in 2019, but the idea of people not just settling for AI relationships because they're lonely and desperate, but actually replacing their human partners with AI, well, that's actually a sad reality now. I mean, it's not happening on a massive scale, but we've all heard those weird news stories over the past couple years. I can only assume it's going to continue. I mean, there are commercials for AI partners now, which has to be probably the most dystopian sci-fi thing I've seen in real life. Feels like one of those satirical commercials from RoboCop, but this episode also touches on the ethical issues of not just AI replacing humans, but how we treat artificially intelligent creations. In the episode, the AI Marge is a completely self-aware entity that wants to survive actively. So are we actually in the process of creating another form of life with AI that'll make it more morally complicated to deal with? The season 25 episode Days of Future, as you can imagine, takes place in the future, in the second half anyway. The beginning takes place in present day. Homer dies of a heart attack, so Professor Frink creates a clone of him. The new Homer also dies, and dies again, and again, and again, and now in the future, Frink finally admits there are just no bodies left to bring him back with, but he does still have Homer's memories backed up on a flash drive. So instead of a person, Homer becomes a digital face on a screen. He has Homer's memories and personality, just no physical body. This feels like a pretty direct nod to the idea of backing up a human mind, what's often referred to now as digital immortality. Homer isn't really alive, but he's not totally gone either. He remembers his family, has opinions, gets angry, gets jealous, and still wants to strangle Bart. He just had arms. Later on, he gets upgraded into a robotic body, a stiff metal frame where his head can detach and plug in somewhere else. The idea of uploading our minds into the digital realm so we can live on after our physical bodies die is something that's being talked about now. Saying this will happen in, 2026, a huge stretch, but we could see big strides being made. Bart also has a storyline in this episode. After his divorce, he's clearly not over his ex, but luckily in this future, there's a place called Moving On, which uses a form of shock therapy to help people move on from tough experiences. They implant something directly into the brain to help get and emotionally detach. Bart goes through what feels like a long, painful journey of growth. He starts dating again, he reconnects with his kids, and he almost gets back together with his ex, but then finally accepts that things just aren't working out and that it's truly over. But none of it actually happened. The entire experience was a simulation triggered by the neural implant from that Moving On company. You can probably guess where I'm going with this. I think we can all imagine the possibility of this type of therapy becoming a thing in the near future. Hopefully not to the point where we're, divorcing people from reality like this, but creating realistic scenarios through VR or something where people can approach difficult situations and kind of work through them. I could definitely see it. Next up, we have a segment from 2021's Treehouse of Horror episode entitled Don't Have a Cow, Mankind. Krusty invents a new burger made from cannibalistic cows, and of course everyone lines up to eat it. The whole town of Springfield ends up turning into pale, drooling zombies. It's ridiculous, but the joke actually lands in a weird way when you look at what's happening with meat today. Lab-grown meat, weird, heavily processed plant-based meats, enhanced or cultured products, they're all hitting the market. People are lining up to try anything new, no matter how weird or unnatural it seems. In a way, Springfield eating this weird burger is just a hyper-cartoon version of our obsession with novelty foods. We'll try anything if it's advertised enough. Then there's the virus part. Luckily, we're not dealing with actual zombies, but it's a little warning about messing with food science and rushing products out there without knowing all the consequences. In the Simpsons movie, the government puts a huge glass dome over Springfield after the town pollutes its lake so badly it becomes a health risk. Springfield gets completely cut off. No one can leave, no one can come in. There's obviously no giant dome being rolled out in real life, that we know of anyway. Nothing would really surprise me at this point though. We've already seen how fast entire cities can be locked down, how travel can be restricted, and how movement is controlled when there's a public health risk. You wouldn't need really a glass dome to do this. You just shut down roads, lock airspace, control information, isolate areas digitally instead of physically. But also, why not just throw a dome over the place for good measure? Next up, we have another one from Holidays of Future Past. In this future set episode, we find Bart living in what used to be Springfield Elementary, now an apartment complex run by Principal Skinner. Of course, Bart is haphazardly behind on rent, tells Skinner he'll be able to pay him when he sells his only good kidney after the other one grows back. Turns out this concept is closer to reality than some of us may think. Scientists are making strides in growing organoids. Organoids are tiny lab-grown versions of organs that mimic how real organs look and work. Teams have managed to grow human kidney organoids that last for months. It's not a stretch at all to say we'll probably one day be able to repair or replace damaged ones with lab-grown tissue. We're now seeing kidney organoids stay alive and stable for up to 34 weeks, a massive improvement over previous attempts that collapsed after only a few weeks. It doesn't mean your kidney will regenerate on its own, like in the episode, and we're still far from people casually selling organs with the expectation that new ones will instantly replace them. The fact is, science is actually heading in this direction, but the regrowing your kidney thing is just the surface level part. The joke also touches on something that's already going on. The average person barely scraping by to pay their damn bills. There are pretty extreme cases of this kind of thing happening in poorer countries around the world, but we're also getting there in the Western world too. Rent and grocery prices are just out of control. There are so many people forced to work multiple jobs to keep up, while at the same time, technology is outpacing us at almost every turn. I actually have a hard time watching certain sci-fi movies now, because reality has kind of become a dystopian cyberpunk hellscape in a lot of ways. And yet another one from Holidays of Future Past, this scene touches on gene editing. Again, the episode takes place in the future. Lisa and Milhouse are parents. They're talking about their daughter Zia, and Milhouse comments about how they picked the best genetic material to have her, which he claims was none of his own genes. On its face, it's a typical Simpsons dig at Milhouse and his incredibly fragile immune system. Surprising Milhouse is even alive in the future, but this little joke also hints at where real science is headed. Gene editing technology, especially tools like CRISPR, are already powerful enough that scientists can tweak DNA in pretty precise ways. They've used it in experimental treatments to correct genetic defects, and there are real debates right now about whether gene editing should ever be used to enhance traits like intelligence, athletic ability, physical appearance, rather than just prevent diseases. That's exactly the future this joke is hinting at, people getting to pick and choose what genes they want in their children. Right now, science isn't at the point where people are creating designer babies with perfect traits, but the fact that The Simpsons can joke about it without feeling completely absurd just goes to show how familiar the idea has actually become. People are already talking seriously about what it would mean if you could select for intelligence, personality, or physical traits. And yes, this next one comes from the same episode. In this scene, Homer and Marge are in bed reading when they receive some mail, but not physical mail, not texts on their phones. In this future, you don't text each other, you get B-mail, which stands for brain mail. Messages go straight into your brain, as you can imagine. But before Homer goes to open his brain mail, Marge warns him it could be a virus. Homer opens it anyway, and suddenly he starts twitching and shaking. Brain-computer interfaces aren't really sci-fi anymore. We already have real technology that can read signals from the brain and send signals back. Companies are working on implants that help people control prosthetic limbs with their thoughts or assist paralyzed people in communicating. There are implants that help restore sight or reduce tremors in Parkinson's patients. So the idea of a chip in your skull that reads and sends signals, it's not that far-fetched. Parts of it are already happening. That doesn't mean people are about to get cat memes blasted directly into their brains next week, but the jump from clunky external devices to implanted interfaces, that's already started. If technology keeps pushing this direction, transmitting simple messages straight to the brain could go from cartoon joke to reality in the very near future. And I can't imagine there won't be some negative repercussions, like sending viruses or just straight up hacking into people's brains. We're already glued to our phones, eyes are locked on screens all day. The idea of skipping the screen entirely, just having messages activated in your head, it does seem to be the next logical step, unless we all band together and form an uprising, or, society just breaks down entirely. This next one comes from season 16, episode 19, where Homer basically has a full-on meltdown after watching a movie at the theater and becomes convinced that the rapture is coming. From there, he starts spotting signs everywhere. He does a bunch of homemade numerology and confidently tells the entire town the world is ending in 1 week. After Homer says stars will fall from the sky, and that a blimp accident knocks a bunch of celebrities to the ground, technically stars falling, Springfield instantly treats it like confirmation. Because this is a silly cartoon, everyone buys into the doomsday idea and starts preparing for the worst. The thing is, this doesn't just happen in cartoons. As we've seen time and time again, people do buy into baseless doomsday predictions. You remember this past summer when TikTok had that massive doomsday trend where people were selling their homes and cars, quitting their jobs, posting these embarrassing videos smugly talking about how great it was, the end times were coming. Yeah, this is probably not gonna get any better. It's so easy for misinformation to spread these days. Unfortunately, I see more doomsday panic in the coming years. In the episode The Cartridge Family, all the way back in season 9 from 1997, the episode opens with the family watching an ad for a big soccer game that's being held in Springfield, a match between Mexico and Portugal, the winner of which will determine the best in the world. It's basically the Simpsons equivalent of the World Cup final. Well, the next FIFA World Cup is going to be hosted across North America. One of the main host countries is Mexico. For Mexico to make it all the way to the final, especially playing on home turf, that would be one of the most unbelievable history-making runs in sports. And the fact that the show paired them with Portugal, another country that's never actually made it to the final, makes this one less likely to happen, but not impossible. I'll be keeping a lookout. Now for a really fun topic, corporate media mergers. This prediction comes from the season 6 episode Lisa's Wedding, which is also famous for its flash forward to the year 2010. Of course, 2010 has come and gone, but the underlying concept is still highly relevant in the current day. In one scene, we see a news ticker running across the bottom of the screen and announces the networks have merged into one ridiculous behemoth entity named CNN-BCBS, a mashup of CNN, NBC, and CBS. Now, while we haven't seen that exact triple merger happen yet, the show was perfectly predicting the trend of media consolidation, where giant companies just keep buying up smaller competitors until only a few massive organizations control all the news and entertainment. Think about what's happening in the last few years alone. Disney owns, everything, right? Like every franchise is Disney now. There are constant rumors about what Amazon or Apple might buy next. The industry is under huge pressure from streaming, and when companies get desperate to survive, they merge. It would be shocking, but it wouldn't be impossible for the major news players to combine in order to stay profitable, especially because so many people get their news from podcasts now. By 2026, we could absolutely see an announcement for a new giant network with some equally awkward name. And this last prediction is probably the biggest anxiety driver for people right now: automation and robots stealing all the jobs. The best episode to look at for this is probably Them Robot from season 23. Mr. Burns is cutting costs, and Smithers calls all the power plant employees into a meeting. What's the big announcement? Smithers proudly unveils a whole army of advanced AI robots. He then tells the human employees, and this is the direct quote from the episode, "You will train them and they will replace you." That's the whole plan. To make it even better, those robots were voiced by Brent Spiner, who famously played the android Data on Star Trek. It was goofy, classic Simpsons stuff, but look at what's happening now with generative AI and automation. It's not a full robot uprising like the Terminator movies, at least not yet, but people are definitely being replaced in the workforce. By 2026, we're going to see AI and robotics move far past past the typical factory line jobs. We're already seeing it take over roles in creative fields, customer service, etc. By 2026, many people who are training an AI system today probably going to realize they just trained their own replacement. From season 27, we have an episode called The Margian Chronicles. The setup is classic Simpsons. It starts with something really simple and then spirals into something you were never expecting. So Homer steals eggs from Ned Flanders, and it ends up with the whole family signing up for a one-way mission to colonize Mars. The company behind it is called Exploration Incorporated, very similar to SpaceX or Mars One. In the episode, they originally announced that they want to have a colony established on Mars by the year 2026. But when the guys running the project, Paul and Barry, find out that a rival company is about to beat them to it, they announce they aren't waiting for 2026 anymore. They're gonna move the launch up to that coming Thursday. That rushed space race energy is exactly what we're seeing in the real world right now. We've got all these companies competing to be the first to reach specific milestones. The Simpsons predicted that private companies would get so competitive over Mars, they'd start making wild promises and changing their timelines. Now, whether we actually launch humans next year or it turns out to be a lot of corporate posturing like it was for Paul and Barry, that's another question. Plastic World is the third segment in the latest Treehouse of Horror episode that just aired a couple months back. The title, Plastic World, is of course a nod to the 1995 movie Waterworld, but the rest of the episode is mostly a parody of the Mad Max franchise. Instead of the world being flooded or gasoline shortages turning the planet into a violent wasteland, here the whole world has basically become a giant landfill. Lisa's walking around by herself because the rest of the family was wiped out in a plastic avalanche, and the only hope anyone has is digging deep enough to find actual dirt to grow food. She ends up finding the Quickie Mart buried under mounds of plastic, but loaded with perfectly preserved frozen food. And the second there's food on the table, factions start fighting over it. Bart shows up, turns out he is alive, and is now in charge of a roaming band of marauders. Well, you know what I'm gonna say. The world is definitely producing the most plastic it ever has. Projections from the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development and the UN Environment Program are saying companies are on a path to at least double that by the late 2030s. Most of this plastic doesn't get recycled. It just piles up in landfills or breaks down into microplastics that are now showing up in the water, soil, snow, our bodies. So when the episode shows Homer and Marge and a bunch of other characters mutating into plastic versions of themselves, of course it's exaggerated, but it's not totally outlandish. Plastic is in a way becoming part of us. Not to mention, have you seen celebrities' faces these days? Treehouse of Horror presents Simpsons Wicked This Way Comes. It's the 7th episode of season 36. Features 3 segments, all tributes to Ray Bradbury stories. The third story drops us into a future where Springfield has gone fully dystopian. But not in the robots taking over kind of way, it's a lot more insidious. The government here controls people by banning anything lowbrow, so no dumb TV, no junk entertainment. Homer works on a squad led by a man named Siegfried Blaze. Their whole job is burning old videotapes of cheap TV shows. At home, the only shows allowed are these dry prestige dramas, which of course Homer hates every second of. When Homer raids the old Springfield Elementary and finds Willie secretly watching a beat-up America's Funniest Home videotape, Homer can't help himself. He watches it, laughs, suddenly remembers what actual fun feels like. Willie gives him the tape before getting hauled off, and Homer starts sneaking off the attic to watch it in secret. But Bart snitches on him. Blaze confronts Homer and ends up revealing that in order to keep people distracted, they push high-end quality content so nobody notices how awful the world around them has become. It's a total inverse of what we're seeing in the real world. Every platform seems to be headed in the opposite direction. TikTok, YouTube Shorts, Instagram Reels. It's all full of this low-effort trends, rage bait, AI, but just like the Simpsons episode, it's all meant to keep people scrolling. And with AI-generated videos getting pushed harder every year, 2026 could easily be a world where entertainment gets so optimized for watch time that genuine creativity just gets buried. But the main point is controlling the population through content, keeping them distracted, depressed, and unfulfilled. That's already happening. The episode Bart to the Future gets brought up a ton when talking about Simpsons eerily predicting the future, mainly because of this line.
As you know, we've inherited quite a budget crunch from President Trump. How bad is it, Secretary Van Houten?
For all four of you who haven't seen this episode, it takes place in the future. Lisa grows up to be the, quote, first straight female president. Now, seeing as Bart to the Future aired in 2000 and takes place 30 years into the future, that would put it in the year 2030, a year after Trump's current term in real life will end. That's pretty eerie. Now, obviously, Lisa Simpson isn't going to be president, but it is possible the United States will be in deep debt by the time 2030 rolls around. There's a very good chance. I mean, you probably don't need me to tell you that things are pretty insane right now. Next up, let's talk about mind control through music. In Season 12, Episode 14, New Kids on the Block, Bart, Nelson, Milhouse, and Ralph form a boy band called Party Posse. Their first song is a massive hit, but their song is actually being used for subliminal mind control. In the music video for their song Drop the Bomb, part of the chorus goes, Yvan ik nioj, the lyrics of which are spelled out on screen, while Lisa discovers that when spelled out backwards, the line becomes join the Navy. In the episode, the music producer behind the boy bands is revealed to be a Navy lieutenant using music as a covert tool for recruitment. While the plot itself is clearly ridiculous, it does touch on something that's not as far-fetched as it sounds, the idea of subliminal messages in media. Now, this is of course nothing new, but in a world where we're more consumed by media than ever before, who's to say we won't see more subtle psychological tactics used in pop music, social media, movies, and the countless shows we stream online. I think the most ridiculous and hard to believe part about this episode is actually Nelson being in a boy band, and that's saying a lot. The Simpsons also have an AI robot takeover in an episode. In the episode Them Robot from season 23, Mr. Smithers calls all the workers into a meeting. And what's the big announcement? Well, Smithers proudly reveals an army of AI robots, telling the employees, you will train them and they will replace you. Creepy, silly and fun though, because it's The Simpsons and the robots are fittingly voiced by Brent Spiner, who played Data in Star Trek, but also this is just a little too real. According to a 2023 report from Business Insider, the World Economic Forum estimates that 85 million jobs will be replaced by robots by 2025. This whole AI takeover thing isn't just some wild idea, it's already starting to happen. And while robots might make certain jobs easier or more efficient, the flip side is that millions of people might lose their jobs as a result. Next, let's talk about something a little more uplifting, literally, hover cars. The Simpsons wasn't the first to dream up flying cars. I mean, science fiction has been teasing them for decades, but what's really cool is there's actually a company called Samson Sky working on bringing this dream to life. They've developed a flying car called the Switchblade, which, to be honest, is more like a car with retractable wings rather than a full-on hover vehicle. Still, it's pretty cool. The company claims it's the world's first flying sports car, and while it might not be the classic hovering car we've all imagined, I think it still counts. At least it's creeping towards it. The Simpsons also predicted Trump's 2024 run. This one also ties into the Barbie movie release, but we'll get to that in a minute. So back in 2015, there was a Simpsons short called Trumptastic Voyage. In a scene where Homer flies by a billboard, we see a sign that reads Trump 2024. At the time, it was a totally out there prediction, right? Well, we all know Trump ran in 2024 and won, but that's not the only eerily accurate prediction from The Simpsons when it comes to Trump. Fast forward to 2023, when the Barbie movie hit theaters, and on the same exact day, Trump was arrested. Coincidence? Maybe, but if you watch the episode Lisa vs. Malibu Stacy from season 5, episode 14, you'll catch a news report mentioning the release of a new Malibu Stacy doll. Toward the end of the segment, the anchor casually adds that the US president has been arrested. In 2023, that moment felt way too familiar. The fact that The Simpsons nailed both Trump's political comeback and the exact timing of the Barbie movie's release and the rest of the stuff, I don't know, it's just, it's really weird. Economic collapse. Now that's fun to think about. Well, again, in Bart to the Future, the United States economy crashes. And in the episode, it's supposedly directly tied to Donald Trump's presidency. While the idea of an economic crash under Trump seemed like a far-out prediction at the time, the reality we're facing today is far from rosy. I mean, just in general, the world's economy is struggling. After the global disruptions of 2020 and beyond, lockdowns, the rise of remote work, supply chain chaos, it's just no surprise that things haven't exactly bounced back. Sure, we're not talking about a full-on economic meltdown just yet, but the signs of something major and destructive are definitely there. Here's something that's already here though, NFTs. In the Simpsons Treehouse of Horror episode Wild Bart's Can't Be Token from 2023, Mayor Quimby announces that the town's art museum is being closed down because all art is now going to be sold as NFTs. Now, at the time, NFTs were already a thing, but they were nowhere near as huge as they became a few years later. NFT art was exploding a couple years back, but it hasn't gone away. And sure, this episode premise was a little ridiculous. Art museums shutting down for NFTs might seem a little out there, but look around and you'll see it's not actually that far off. We've got virtual art galleries popping up, VR headsets for experiencing art, and AI-generated artwork that's been pushing the boundaries of what's considered real art. The point is, a lot of folks have plenty of things to entertain themselves with from the comfort of their own home now, barely ever feeling the need to go out and engage with the world, let alone going to an art gallery. So museums and art galleries shutting down is really not that far-fetched.